Hello, and welcome to the Wonder Women segment of the Maker Mom podcast. I am Katie Freeman, your host of the podcast. Every week I am bringing you two interviews of amazing female and non-binary makers alike, some of them moms, some of them not, but make sure you check out both Wednesday and Friday episodes. This week's Wonder Women segment is with Anne of Anne of All Trades. She really does do it all. Currently she's working on building a craft school on her property in Tennessee. And she also does homestead farming, she does woodworking, she does metalworking, she does blacksmithing. She really, truly does it all. And if you're not familiar with her, well, I hope that you listen to this whole interview and then go check out her YouTube channel and Instagram and all the good content that she is putting out. But before we hop into the interview, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to the patrons over on Patreon. So thank you so much. Bonnie, Tool Mom Bonnie of toolmomstore.com. Laura, Oakley Soap Company. Mary Lou, Made by Mary Lou. Amy, Bison Valley Carving. Dan and Kelly, Reclaimed Living Store. Brandy, Studio Obey. Kathy, One Girl and Her Tools. Ellen, Little Bear Furniture. And Ethan Carter Designs. Thank you all so very much for your ongoing support of the podcast and helping to produce 2 episodes a week. All right, make sure that you listen to the end of the podcast so you can find out more about how you can support the ongoing content that is being produced. And with no further ado, here is Anne of All Trades.
Wonder Woman, now the world is ready for you, and the wonders you can do. Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman.
So how have you been? You've been working hard. You've been working crazy hard.
It's been a bit of a summer for sure, but not in a negative way. It's so easy in a situation like this to allow yourself to get completely overwhelmed and really start looking at it as a slog or whatever, because
Right.
18-hour days are pretty much what it's like right now, but I really I have to just constantly be refocusing myself and just being hey, this, you asked for all of this.
Right.
And I didn't, no one, yeah, you know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And all of it is indicative of really good things. Even the fact that amidst COVID, that I have work to do is a blessing in and of itself, and which is very different than, so many other people around the country.
Yep.
The fact that I'm working this much is also because of COVID, because initially I had a certain amount of money laid aside so that I could pay some people to help me, and that disappeared as a result of COVID. So
Right.
there's some give and take for sure, but I really am thankful that we at least are even still able to move forward. We're right now I'm building a craft school, and that is really exciting to it's an exciting thing. It's something I've been working towards pretty intentionally for the last 5 years, but really the last 8 years have really led me here. And then also we just moved across the country, so we kind of got a blank canvas as far as starting over with our farm, and so I just wanted to jump in with both feet there too. And the thing is that's really cool about all this is that with COVID even happening, I normally travel every 2 to 3 weeks,
Right.
and I'm gone for half the month every month. And so the very fact that I am here to establish the farm, by the end of this year I will have this farm that was had nothing of what I needed except for a physical barn. By the end of the first year I'll be further along than I was after 5 years of building up our farm in Seattle. And so just the very fact that I'm around is great. So it's definitely some long days. Like I'm still trying to like put out videos every week. I hired some full-time employees this year, and so trying to keep them in work was definitely a big challenge. Even just trying to figure out how we're gonna like devote enough time to make a weekly YouTube
Right.
kind of stuff. And so all that's still going on. I'm working on writing a book, and yeah, that's, and
You're
then
crazy.
I also got like, yeah, but I also got dairy cows this year, and I'm actually also getting beef cows in a couple weeks. And so there's definitely, like I said, I asked for all of it.
Yeah, but that's like, I mean, that's a good busy. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good busy, you know? So, okay, I'm going to circle back around and have you, like, introduce who you are. I know everyone who will be watching this will know who you are, but
no.
still.
I'm Anne. Some people may know me as Anne of all trades, and I am a woodworker primarily. I started building fine furniture 8 years ago. I picked up my first tool 8 years ago, started doing just projects that I needed around the house that we couldn't afford to buy. Around that same time, I also planted my first seed and got my first pet. I had grown up living abroad. My parents are missionaries, so I didn't have exposure to any of this world back then, but I kind of like was working in corporate America and was like, I have always wanted to do things with my hands. I'd never had that opportunity before. I'm going to take it, and quickly realized I wanted to find my exit from corporate America, and now here we are. 8 years later, I started a YouTube channel 3 years ago. 8 years ago, I started an Instagram account, and writing has always been something I love doing. So writing for various magazines and doing product photography and other things kind of opened doors for other areas that eventually turned into a business that is now what I do.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I realized, like, in my preparation to chat with you that there were some things I wanted to cover that I feel like, because I've listened to you be interviewed on other podcasts, you know, I was like, okay, what are some things we can cover about Anne that's, like, not covered typically? One of those things, I know you've mentioned your parents were missionaries, like, and you grew up abroad and stuff, but can you talk a little bit more about that experience? Like, what was
Absolutely
an average day as a kid like for you?
Well, I was a super quirky kid. I'll just say that right now. So my parents my parents helped found an organization 40 years ago that is a non-denominational Christian ministry, and they have worked for that organization ever since. They helped found one of the campuses that's now the second biggest campus worldwide, and the organization is called, for those who are wondering, Youth with a Mission. And so the campus that they helped found is in Lakeside, Montana, which is a very small town in the middle of nowhere in the northwest corner of Montana. And what they did is they bought this former Air Force commander base. And so it actually was set up to basically be the campus that they were going to turn it into. And so it had officer housing. So there was like a circle of like houses. And then it had dormitories and a cafeteria, mess hall thing. It had classrooms and things. And so they were able to, basically, the organization, that it is a training facility for people that want to become long-term missionaries. And so they have all kinds of different things that they do. I mean, like, I could go on and on. It's like actually a really cool organization. But they have all kinds of things that are like not necessarily like related. Well, I mean, they are related to missions, but I mean, they have, they're on the campus there. They have their own mechanic shop. They have a wood shop. They have a recording studio. They have a like state-of-the-art architect studio. They do, like, dancers come from all over the world to like do choreographed dances. So it's very much creative focused. And that piece of it really, really kind of like in a lot of ways made me who I am now, because there was infinite opportunities to express creativity and to explore that, especially accentuated by the fact that there was adults who were very interested in investing in young lives, who would, foster that kind of curiosity and creativity. And so when we were in the States, that was like the ideal circumstance. I mean, you're living in a fenced-in neighborhood with all people that you deeply, deeply know. So like, it's safe to be in anyone's house. Like, we basically got turned out at the beginning of the day, and then we weren't allowed to come home till like after dark or whatever else. And so it was awesome to be able to be like, we were heavily monitored, but like fully free. Like we could, I spent half my childhood just like running through the woods and fishing and like building forts and like tinkering on golf carts or go-karts and things like that. Just like basically totally free, which was really, really cool, and definitely is a huge part of who I am now. When we were traveling abroad, which we spent a lot of time in Ukraine, Austria, Czech Republic. When I was young, they were doing some relief stuff after Chernobyl happened. So we were in Eastern Europe for a lot of that. And then my parents had been doing a lot of work in Asia. When I was 13, I went to Asia like as a cognizant enough person for the first time. And I absolutely loved Taiwan. And I basically decided when I was 13 that I was going to learn Chinese and that I was going to spend the rest of my life living in Asia. I then started traveling back and forth to Taiwan specifically, but then like pretty much all the time. And then when I was in university, I decided to do a year abroad. I went to Peking University in Beijing. And then after I graduated university, I went back to Taiwan to do a biblical training school that was like a bilingual school in Chinese and English that is associated with that same organization. So that was what that was like. A typical, like the one kind of interesting thing about that is that we all went to public school when we were in the States. So like it was often that I'd miss like 100 days of school in a year. And like, because we were the only kids that like in rural Montana that were like, that had such an eclectic lifestyle, like it, I was pretty badly bullied when I was a kid, like pretty significantly. I actually like now as an adult have now realized that I like was having anxiety and panic attacks like all the time at school that were manifesting. Like, I mean, I didn't know what was happening. Right. So I was just always getting sick. So one year of school, I called my mom and had her come pick me up from school at 11 o'clock every single day because I was like physically ill. But because like now, like I literally just a few months ago, like realized, oh, like the panic attacks that I'm having now and like that kind of anxiety and depression and stuff, like that's what that was back then. But like we had no names or anything for it. So anyway, all that to say that like I didn't know that any of that was like going on really. And I also was like, my parents are the most encouraging, like supportive people in the world. So like amazingly, I left that situation with like an unhealthily high self-confidence level. And so like things that I think like happen, like things that I like genuinely remember happening as a kid, like that probably would have like affected other people like greatly for the rest of their lives, like were like detrimental slightly, but like didn't like affect me until much, much, much later. So, I mean, ultimately, I feel like I had the coolest childhood. Like if I could somehow replicate it for my kids and then maybe shield them from like a little bit of like the crappy things that kids will do to one another, then I would. But like, I mean, yeah, I'm so thankful to my parents for like the experiences that they gave us. I'm thankful that that they raised us in rural Montana, but also that they took us abroad and gave us like a perspective on the world and just a worldview that was far greater than we would have otherwise had. Yeah,
totally. So you have a sibling, more than one sibling?
I have two blood siblings, and then because of the organization, like that, everyone like you gain other family members quite quickly. So, you know, there was always multiple people that were like coming in and out of the house that like I've now since basically just treated as siblings. Two of which, like, one of them is from South Africa and one of them is from Indonesia. They are like my big sisters that I mean, I also have a big sister, but I would say they're the big sisters that I never had because they were such a huge part of my life. They still are. Like, they've gone on to have kids of their own, and their kids have basically been like my little sisters, my little brothers. And that's been really cool. And they still live, Rebecca lives on one side and Mariska lives on the other side of my parents. And so, you know, every time I go home, it's like, you know, everybody's still there. And so, so there's like, I mean, there's like basically 13 people that I would consider to be my siblings. But my older sister and my older brother are my real ones. Yeah.
Okay. So I would say probably, are your parents surprised at all then, like what you do for a living now, given that you had access to, like you said, that free range creativity and like, were they surprised at all when you're like, I'm leaving my corporate world and this is what I'm gonna do?
I don't think my parents are ever surprised by anything that I do because they know better. But also they're like, again, they're just so supportive that like, I think we always joke, which is, I know that this is not the case, but like Adam and I always joke that my mom is like so supportive that she'd be like, oh my gosh, like you're joining the Hells Angels? Like that seems like such a great community of like friends. Like you guys, like, you know, you'll be able to, you know, do heroin together. Like it's gonna be so great that you'll have those special experiences. Like obviously that's like the most like exaggeration ever, but Adam and I do always joke about stuff like that. But like, no, I don't think that it was surprising that I would end up like doing this kind of stuff. I think it was pretty surprising to them that I came back to the US and like lived in the US. And I'll be honest, it's surprising for me too. That was never my intention. When I moved back to Seattle almost 10 years ago now, I was planning to come back for 6 months. Adam and I were going to get married and then we were going to go back to Asia. But then we got married and Adam got a really good job opportunity. And here we are 10 years later and we don't live in Asia. And that was a pretty tough dream and goal and everything to give up. But, you know, I like we've made it a priority for me to be able to go back frequently. I go and visit my friends from university all the time. They come here all the time. I go back to Taiwan at least once a year, usually, not right now. But yeah.
Awesome.
So, yeah, I think that was the only real surprise about that. But the other thing too is that like I've been obsessed with all this stuff since I was a kid, even though I didn't really have like we don't have any money is the other thing of that like, you know, I had no idea how like poor we were until I was an adult and I was like, oh my gosh, like they hid that really, 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 really well. But yeah, like I didn't have any tools. I didn't have like we couldn't buy like supplies for projects or anything like that. And so basically I was like, if like one of the neighbor kids had like a wrench and a golf I drive a golf cart every day now.
I know.
So like it's like I always call it a golf cart or a go-kart, but if one of the kids had a go-kart, like it was so exciting to be able to work on it. But like, you know, I'm now living my childhood dream by like working on all that stuff because now I can. But I couldn't back then.
That's awesome. So I also don't know much besides the fact that you left corporate world to work with your hands. What kind of work did you do in corporate world? Like, what were you doing?
I'm not sure if I'm technically allowed to like talk about some of it.
Okay.
But I mean, I feel like, what are they going to do at this point? But I worked for a website called Zulily for a little while. Do you know
yeah,
like
of course. All moms know about.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I was working at Zulily, I was like, basically like, it was horrible. Like, I mean, like if like the funny thing is, I really think that just like the way that I am, I'm very adaptable. Like in the right circumstance, I can do anything and like love doing it. So it really wasn't like the fact that it was corporate America that like killed me. I really think that if I was working at a place that had like a company culture like Google or Amazon or like that, some of the things that you hear about where they have like, you know, jam rooms
Right.
and like a gym on set, and like everyone like and like a company lunch thing where like everyone hangs out and you work together in teams and things like that. Like that, I think, I don't know if I ever would have actually left that, because ultimately, no matter what I'm doing, the thing I care more about than anything is the relationships that are involved. And so I think if I had been on a more dynamic team in corporate, it probably would have been really different. I do say that I actually did work for another company that was like a fire and security company that actually did have a pretty good team dynamic, but it was like also quite miserable. So, I mean, I'm really thankful for that job, in case anyone from that company is listening. But anyway, so what I really did was like, I did like peon type stuff. Like at Zulily, I was like resolving, I'll have to think if I can remember even like the terms. But basically, because Zulily is like a daily deal site, they will get like batches of inventory, and it will like be scanned in and like automatically uploaded to the website, and then like it'll be sold like in that batch. But there could have been discrepancies. I'm gonna just like bore everyone here, just to get everyone took out of it. There'd be like discrepancies with the numbers of things that were like there and the number of things that were sold. And so like I was in charge of like trying to like basically looking at the website and looking at orders and trying to find the problems. Like,
Gotcha.
And so
like a quality control type check.
Well, kind of. I would be looking at pages and pages and pages of things and looking for the anomaly, so that if we found the anomaly, then we could like fix the coding so that anomaly didn't happen again. And basically there was like this like hundreds of thousands of things in the backlog that just like would keep recycling in the system if you didn't find the problem. And so I was looking for the problem. Anyway, I'm dyslexic. That's not a good job for someone who's dyslexic to do. Wasn't good at it, didn't like it. I was commuting via bus, which is great if public transportation is good, but Seattle, I think, has improved this slightly. But I would have to leave at 5 a.m. to get to work by 9. And it was not that far away. It's just that, like, you know, I was like being a good citizen and wanting to commute by bus and all that BS. So,
did you guys have that same homestead property at that time when you were doing that job?
No, we lived actually, funnily enough, quite close to that homestead, just up the street actually. But we lived in a neighborhood that ironically had an HOA. I say ironically because it was a poop hole. To put it lightly. And I mean, like Adam's house was like one of the best in the neighborhood, but that's not like really saying that much. And like the reason I even bring up the HOA is that like I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be the perfect place to like, you know, change the garage and like set up my tools and everything. I can dig up the backyard and put in a garden because I've always wanted to like have a place that I could have a garden. You know, I'll be able to get chickens and rabbits, and like honestly, like if that HOA was not there, I honestly wonder if we would have ever even bought bigger property or anything. But anyway, I'm now like rambling to a completely different story. But I had to join the HOA so that I could, like the HOA board, so that I could pre-delete all of the email complaints about my chickens, my dug up backyard. But like the funniest thing about this is that like this neighborhood was not nice enough that anyone should have cared. It's just literally that like you know, people that lived in the neighborhood were like sitting around like looking for things to make us think about. And honestly, I don't think that the HOA could have even done anything about it, even if like even if I had gotten caught or whatever. But I'm very proud to say that I lived there for 2 more years with my backyard garden and with my chickens, and was never found out. So. But
nice.
Anyway, what was the question? What was I doing at corporate America? There's your answer.
Well, I was really just trying to figure out when the homestead came into play, and when, like, was it just like kind of an accident in the sense of like you started a garden and then like the garden grew, and you started with like an animal, and then the animals just grew, and then all of a sudden you realize like you're doing a thing that's not
Yeah.
like everybody else is doing.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, I will preface it by saying that I have always wanted to live on a farm, but I think that's more because, like, you know, as a kid living in rural Montana, like, I saw what it was like for like my friends to have horses and like to have like pets, like dogs and like
Right.
things like that. And also, like, another like funny thing that like as an adult, I'm like, oh well, there's why that was that way. But like I always have like been obsessed with animals, and like because I was like so badly bullied as a kid, like animals were like, and this is like the most pathetic thing ever, but like animals were the only thing that like never hurt me. And so like I have always like absolutely loved animals and like had like a certain like soul connection to them, because I'm like, look, like I will do anything that I can for you, and you're gonna like, because I know that you're gonna do anything like that for me. And so yeah, I always did, like I always said that I wanted to live on a farm as a kid, because I always like wanted to I was like, what if I could have animals around me all the time and they would never like they would never hurt me, like kind of thing.
Right.
But like the funny thing is that I have said repeatedly that like I am very, very good at like getting in way over my head. Because like one thing, like I don't have the thing that I think most people have, that's like, hey, like that seems like a bad idea, or like, you know, like I'm not gonna try that because like, you know, like whatever it is, like I think that like whatever it is that stops people from doing things that like people are like, oh, you know, I've always wanted to build something, whatever it is that like keeps them from building something, like I don't have that, and I don't have it at all, like and to a negative fault often. With the whole homesteading thing or whatever else, is that like I got in, and I like if nothing had disrupted that, I think I would have found a way to make like that small homestead like really, really work out well. But we did have a very big life disruption that is not mine to talk about, but we had to suddenly move. And so in that, we found, like, I'm so not tech savvy, it's hilarious, but like I accidentally clicked on some like pop-up ad that like happened to be for a farm that was right down the street, and it looked, at least in the pictures and to my idiotic naivety, to be absolutely perfect. And it was like just above where we could afford to pay, but like maybe we could negotiate and all this stuff. Anyway, we had to move in, well, we had to be out of our house in 19 days. So this is a complete surprise. And yeah, I mean, I had already, like, you know, like I said, I dug the backyard. There's a whole lot of undoing I needed to be able to do to make all that work. Anyway, to make a long story short, miraculously we got that place. And I say miraculously, but then like after the fact, I'm like, oh my gosh, what the hell did I get into? Because that place was a dump, like a dump. The house, like, I mean, it had been a rental house for 20 years, if that gives you any indication. And there was trash everywhere. Like it was so like, and I didn't know anything about farming or anything else. So it's like, I don't know why I thought that was a good idea, but like I thought the barn was really cute looking, and like it had some land. Turns out the land was like covered in like 6 inches of carpet, and then like with seeds planted on top of it, and then there was like 6 dump truck loads worth of trash in the forest, and nothing worked and everything was broken. And oh yeah, there was a 1,500 square foot shop on the property, but it was condemned, as it turns out. We found out later. But anyway, all of that, like, you know, I got it was too late when I found all that out. So I was like, well, I guess this is what we're doing now. And really, again, if I'd wanted to like stay in Seattle, we could have made that place even work for forever, because even at like 3 acres, you can do anything that I like doing, you can do it on 3 acres, easy peasy lemon squeezy. But then, you know, I didn't really like living in Seattle. I didn't want to live there. I mean, I'd only come back for 6 months, and 6 months had suddenly turned into 3 years when we first bought the farm, and then, you know, 5 more years later, and I was like, I would like to get out of this place. but I also didn't know if or when that would ever happen. So we built it I built it up to exactly what I wanted it, only to find out after I finished the last big project, a week later we were moving to Tennessee. But such is life. Yeah. So to answer your question, it was incremental, but I also I had no idea what I was doing, and I had no idea it was going to grow to be this. And 8 years in, I see this, and I'm like, well, what's it going to be in 30? But I mean,
right.
hopefully, things will find a equilibrium.
All right, I'm super excited for this week's sponsor. This week's sponsor is Tool Mom Bonnie, or Tool Mom and Company. So Tool Mom and Company is for all ages, genders. They have what you need for your one-stop tool-related merchandise of gifts or clothing or both. Her products are fun, fashionable, one of a kind. And you can check her out at www.toolmomstore.com or find her on Instagram under Tool Mom Bonnie, and Bonnie's Bonnie. You can receive an extra 20% off at checkout by using the coupon code MakerMom. So I have 2 of her mugs. I have one that says, I believe, what is it? Oh my gosh. One is the definition of a tool woman, and the other one is just a circular saw with flames coming off of it, and I believe it says Go Girl on it, and they're super fun mugs. I love drinking coffee out of them in the morning. If it's not out of my Wonder Woman mug, it is out of one of those 2 mugs. So you definitely should at least check out the mugs, if nothing else. And remember, extra 20% off at checkout by using the code MakerMom. All right, thank you, Tool Mom Bonnie, and let's get back to the episode.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know a little bit that when you were in Seattle, you also, you worked at a school, right? A bit while you were there.
Yeah.
So you got into woodworking because you couldn't afford stuff, so you were going to build stuff. And then were you were using hand tools because you didn't have shop space, correct? Is that?
A little of that and a little of other things. Actually, when we were in our original house, we did have a garage, and I actually did get some power tools, and I got set up there. But I very quickly got into hand tools because another funny thing about my childhood is I have been obsessed with history my entire life. So I was always into Roman times, and then the settlers fascinated me because they were able to do everything that they wanted to do, just themselves. Great at, people that were lived through the Great Depression have always been I want to hear everything about their life and how they made things work in the midst of that and all that. So anyway, all that to say that the hand tools were really interesting because it was a way to use to basically create almost an experience. In my shop, I had this hand tool area that you stepped into it, it was you're literally stepping back into time, and so you can suddenly use antique things, and what story does it tell that this hand plane is 150 years old? Who else touched it? What they used to make with it? What did they make it with using it? Good night.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And whose hands touched it, and what's their story, and all kinds of stuff like that. And so that's why hand tools was initially exciting to me. But I did have power tools in that shop. Then when we moved to our new house, again, the farm or whatever, because it had this huge shop, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be able to fill this thing with so many tools, blah blah blah. It was condemned. We put all my stuff in there. 3 days later, we had this huge rainstorm, and there's 3 inches of water on the ground. I was like, okay, well, I have to sell all my power tools because they're going to just rest to shit in here. Anyway, oops, there's the other one. Mom, sorry. Anyway, all that to say that, I then was okay, well, I either have to stop woodworking until I can rebuild this, which we were completely broke from buying the farm, and also we're going to be broke for the foreseeable future because we bought the farm. But yeah, so there was a laundry room in the thing, and I was like, well, my workbench fits in here, so I'm going to fit everything else in here too. So I started doing only hand tools, but literally not because I was a purist, which I love being a purist for some reason, but it wasn't because I was a purist. It was because I literally had no option to put like only the workbench fit. Like when I was building furniture in there, I had to climb over the workbench to get to the other side of my project to continue working on it. Like there was no extra space. So that's kind of what happened with the hand tools there. But right after we moved to the farm, I was offered a job that I was like unbelievably unqualified for, running the woodworking program at Pratt Fine Arts Center, which is the school you're talking about. And basically got the opportunity there to build the education program that I couldn't afford to take, that I'd wanted to take. And then I also like was working. So like I got to get kind of, I mean, I was doing it, I was like attending the classes in my spare time, but like, you know, it was part of my job to like, to be there and to attend the classes. So I got to like, basically I looked at myself and I was like, hey, I'm like my ideal student for this program. Like, who do I need to hire? What do they need to teach? I was like making the course curriculum. And then because, you know, I worked in corporate America, like I had like, and I, you know, I majored in marketing and stuff in college. So like I knew how to market it. And that, like, the marketing was the only skill that I brought, and then my ineptitude was the other skill that I brought, because I just basically used that to model a program that then became really successful for the school. And like, you know, it was a weird thing to be like a 24 or maybe 26-year-old person in a room full of the other studio managers were all like in their 40s or above. They all had masters of fine arts, and they had been doing their craft for many, many years. They're like, you know, at like company meetings, they'd be like, oh, like what museum has your work been shown in? And like everyone would be like showing these like slideshows of all of these places that their work had been. I'm like, well, my mom's living room is pretty cool, so there's that. But yeah,
I mean, was there an intimidation factor at all? I mean, I don't see you really, because you seem always, like you said, an absurd level of confidence, right? So it seems like
walking into those rooms and being in those rooms, like I definitely was like, hi guys. but the thing is too, that I think a lot of other people would have like not taken the job and would have been like, oh, you know, I'm going to give this to someone who's more qualified. But like, it never even crossed my mind. I was like, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. And like, and the thing too is that like growing up without any financial resources, like I've been an entrepreneur. I started my first business when I was 6 years old. Like, so, and I'm, you know, I got my first full-time job when I was 13. I lied about my age, and like I worked to help save money so that I could go to college one day. And like, so I knew that like, even though I was like technically not qualified for the job and like was bringing a very different perspective to it than anyone else in that position had before, I also knew that like I'd work my butt off to earn it. And I did. And like, and it worked out really well for everyone involved, because it was a great experience for me. It was like, I built a program that I was really proud of there. You know, enrollment like skyrocketed. Like we were selling out like every class. It was like, it was great for everyone involved. It just like, you know, it was also a little weird to be in a room full of people that like knew way more than me. And also like, I think like really all of them were so kind to me, at least to my face. And so like, I'm just like, oh, you know, like that was great and undeserved as well. But I definitely always felt like there was a, like, what the heck is she doing here kind of thing, like with so many things like that. But you know what? It worked out great for everyone.
Have you ever gone down to, it would have been down when you were in Seattle, down to the Krenov School of Woodworking?
I didn't ever make it down there. I have like meant to for so long. But it's like in like, you have to like you fly into the airport, and then it's like a 2-hour drive to get there. And I'm like, first of all, like when I was like doing all that stuff, like I wasn't old enough to rent a car. So unless I got someone else to take me, I just never made it there.
Yeah. I think it would have been cool for you to have the opportunity to meet Laura Mays, who runs the program there.
Oh yeah.
Because she's an amazing fine woodworker herself.
Totally. I mean, I know who program. She is.
Yeah. All right. So is that where's the passion come for the craft school on your property? Like, where's that passion coming?
Well, like there's it's like kind of multifaceted there, because like I will actually say that like working at Pratt was the, like, if there was a way that I could have picked Pratt up and put it in a location that was more like centrally located to me physically, it would have been a place that I could have spent like the rest of my life working at positions. But like there is a funny like dichotomy of like I care so much about being with people, but I also love farming, and it is really, really, really tough to be away from the farm for like multiple hours at a time. It's like when I would go into Pratt, you know, it would be easily a 10-12 hour day, and like that's fine if nothing happens, like if no goats get out, or you know, if your alpaca isn't having a baby in the middle of the day, or like something like that. But like, you know, it's not, it like, even though it's only like, I don't know, I think it was like 16 miles away from my house, or like maybe even 14 miles away from my house, but because of Seattle traffic, that was like an hour-and-a-half drive. And so like, even if something happened, like my dog got hit by a car, like, you know, to get home is like, it's a funny thing about like the emergencies of farm life. So anyway, this is a very long way of answering your question, which is par for the course. But I like have, like, even in Seattle, like the shop that I built up, like that 1,500 square foot space that I like built from the inside out, rebuilt it and everything. Like the whole point was literally like, funnily enough, like as much as I like, you know, working with wood or blacksmithing or working on cars or like whatever else, like the thing that I love about it is doing it with other people, which is why Pratt was so cool, because it was like a community maker space. There's like so much knowledge and so much, you know, inspiration and community all under one roof, in so many different disciplines. So you can be as unfocused as you want and still be productive with other people and building relationships the whole time. So even in Seattle, when I was building my own shop there, I was building it like almost as like a fly trap for other people, because I wanted it to be a space that other people would like. I wanted to make it like so cool and so well equipped that other people I admired would want to come and work there too. And that very much happened, and that was super rad. I mean, I spent a ton of time working with my friend Nick from Bear Built, who's just one of my best friends now. You know, I had tons of people come from all over the country to do collaborations and things like that, and like that was the goal, really. Sorry if you hear any like commotion, it's because my donkeys are breaking down the recycling right below me on the porch. So that's what's happening. They like to play with boxes, and like they're just like tearing the boxes apart piece by piece by piece. Anyway, all that to say that when it came to coming to Tennessee here, there was no shop, there was no space that would be like, I mean, there's a barn, but I have animals and livestock, so like that's not really, and then there's a garage, but it's like, you know, it's a 2-car garage and it's attached to our home. And even then, like if I were to set up the tools that I have, like I have industrial equipment at this point. So like if I were to set up the tools that I have, and that, like there would be no space. Like, so maximum, I might be able to have a friend come and like hang out while we're working together, or maybe do like a collaboration, but it would never be more than that. And so I really wanted to make a space that was big enough for like multiple people to be in at one time. But then I also like, I mean, the only reason that I am where I am now is because I always say that I picked up my first tool and planted my first seed 8 years ago. Yeah, like I had that amazing childhood with like lots of enrichment and stuff like that, but I didn't know how to do anything. And I had never had tools of my own. So I didn't have any like actual skills. I just had like, you know, experiences. So like the only reason that I am where I am now, as far as like craftsmanship and anything else, is like specifically with woodworking, is like, because I had a series of people that I like intentionally sought out and asked to mentor me, and I like found ways for me to add value to their lives so that they would do the same to mine. You know, the reason I got my Chevy truck, my antique truck that I'm building, is like I had no idea like what a carburetor was or how an engine worked or anything like that. But I was like, the best way to learn is going to be to have someone show me on a vehicle that I need to drive. And so with all that, I have met, like, also because I've done a lot of interviews. I used to have a regular column in a woodworking magazine. So I've interviewed tons of people, like through Lee Nielsen, Toolworks, one of the companies that I've done a lot of education stuff through and for. You know, I've gotten to be in places, like rooms that I didn't deserve to be in with people that I didn't deserve to meet. And then because of Pratt, I was able to like hire master artists to come from like other places in the country that are like well-established craftspeople. You know, I was at dinners and like charity events and stuff like that. Again, places I didn't deserve to be with people I didn't deserve to meet. But because of all of that, I'm like very, very, very well connected in the community. And one thing that I have seen happen, especially like as social media has grown and stuff, like basically if you have like a certain number of followers, you're accepted to be an expert. And unfortunately, the way that you get followers actually doesn't really have anything to do with skill or you know, prowess in your field or anything else. It's like it's a whole lot of other stuff, as you know, as a content creator yourself. And I've seen like time and time again, I mean, like even with myself, like, you know, I think all the time, like people look to me as like some resource for fine woodworking. And I mean, I know I teach fine woodworking. Like I know a little bit about it, but like, I certainly don't know as much as Christian Bexford, who has been cutting, like who's like the world-renowned expert in dovetails. But is Christian Bexford getting 8,000 likes on social media? Is he like getting, you know, hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube? No, he's not. And I've seen that time and time and time again with people that I know to be like the best craftsmen. And people are looking on social media for, good God, I don't even know how long I've been talking at this point.
No, you're good. You're good.
To answer your question.
No, you're good.
But like I've seen people on social media so hungry for knowledge, but like, you know, the people who are actually good at their craft don't tend to be super good at social media. Like their stuff, like the actual expert stuff is not getting put in front of the people that desire to see it. And so with all of that, I was like, well, what if I could build a space that would bring the people that I want to be around and to learn from to me here on the farm, but would also like what could I do to offer them something like lasting in return? And one of those things is to create paywall content, like so online content. So like I know how to produce things, I know how to market things, I know how to film things and photograph things beautifully. So what I'll do is open this place up for a series of like expert teachers in like a variety of different disciplines: blacksmithing, woodworking, farming, like mechanics. Like there will be space, like machines or machining. Like there will be space and shops set up for all that stuff. And I will, like, because of who I know, I'll be able to invite the actual experts here. But while they're here, I'll also film for them like an online class that then like they can take, like, I mean, they don't take it, it's not a real thing. They take that digital product with them, and like, yeah, they get the income from the class, which is significant. Like if you've ever, you know, a week-long class, you can earn a significant amount of money, but like not just that amount of money, but then also they can take like something that will pay them quarterly, monthly, whatever, for like forever. And I've seen some classes like that, you know, like can sell for like they'll make $100,000 in the first year. And like, even if it's like $10,000, like $10,000 for a lot of these people that I've known and interviewed over the years is like a life-changing amount of money. And so to get what I want, which is like, you know, the chance to learn from these people, it's like a very small thing for me to build this facility and like produce some content for them and then give them like long-term income. And so that's what's really exciting for me is like, is to bring a little bit of that stuff that like, not everyone is seeing, and put it in front of them and give other people the opportunity to learn from people who are actually like, you know, have done it more than three times. You know, a lot of the YouTube content, like, I mean, even I'm guilty of this. Like, you know, I've got to get a video out. Like, I'm going to try something for the first time. And now I'm like, suddenly like, you know, I don't do like step-by-step content for this reason. But like, you know, suddenly I'm like in a position where people might look to me for advice about something that like, you know, this is the first time I've done plumbing. Like, are you really going to ask me like what kind of silicone to use? Like, I wouldn't.
So I always ask this question. as part of my podcast because it's specifically focused on women in the craft. And that is like, you're like, to me, you're describing like would be my dream scenario, to be able to just be like a fly on the wall, right? And learn all of these amazing things, as I'm sure any maker would want to be. Is there a part that you see of providing more attainable access to women specifically, like
Oh, sure.
in this area?
There is something like so powerful about seeing people that look like you doing the things that you want to do. And even more than that, like seeing someone who looks like you doing something that you never thought that you could do, or that, like, you know, like, again, I grew up in a really supportive situation, so it wasn't really so much like that for me. But it really, like, but I mean, I also grew up in rural Montana. Like, one of the big reasons that I was like so badly bullied is because I was super into skateboarding and like building stuff, and like I was a total tomboy, and like, you know, girls did not do that stuff there.
Right.
And like, and that was like, you know, it crushed me in a lot of ways as a kid, and, you know, as a young teen and everything, because it just, like, you know, to assimilate, I had to like ignore the things that gave me the most life and excitement. And so I am like, that's one thing that like I like absolutely like when dads email me and they're like, hey, you know, like, you know, watching your videos, I like, it gave me the idea to take my daughter into the shop. We had a blast. I'm so glad that we had that quality time together. That like breaks my heart in the best possible way, because I'm like, yeah, that's like a dad spending time with his daughter. Like every daughter does that, you know, or like time with their parents or
Right,
whoever,
yeah.
you know, like that's so huge. But then not only like, even beyond that, then that means like, you know, he's then giving her an example of someone who does, like, you know, what if she does love that? Like then she can be the one who's in dad's shop or mom's shop or whatever,
Right.
working alongside him or her. And like, yeah, that's like huge to me. I think it's really awesome to like, I mean, and the craziest thing is, I think, like, you know, guys have like numerically a huge advantage as far as this stuff goes, but like some of the most talented people that I know, like Megan Fitzpatrick, Nancy Hiller, like they're like Laura Mays, like they're so, like, I mean, I literally like am gonna just like, I can't make a list because I'll leave too many people out and then I'll regret it later. Like, anyways, I mean, there are people that like that are I think like better in so many ways than their counterparts, because there's also like, I mean, and I could probably get canceled for saying something like this, but like women bring a different eye to everything. Like Lisa, my blacksmithing mentor, she is one of the most talented blacksmiths I've ever met, and her, like, the way that she works and the way that she designs things is different than any guy I've ever seen, and that's pretty special. And like, and anyway, it needs to be seen more, it needs to be done more, and like there really is no, like, there should be no barriers. If it's life-giving, doesn't matter what gender you are, you should be doing it.
No, that's what I've had conversations recently, because outside of the major storm that we've been cleaning up, I've been working on fixing and redoing the siding of a little playhouse at my daughter's preschool, which she's like, you know, so proud to go around and say, my mommy's a woodworker, and she's fixing the playhouse. But like the other people who are helping are the female teachers. Like, so it's a whole group of women working on this project, you know, and an occasional guy will come over and try to like mansplain something. And it's like, all you have to do is turn around as a group of women and look at him like, really? Like, clearly we are okay doing this. Even though personally, outside of like the experience I had with you in April that one weekend, carpentry and building I have never done. And so like, this is totally just like, I'll wing it, I'll figure it out as I go. Like, it's a playhouse, it's, you know, it's not a real house. So but still, it's just amazing to me, like, to have those conversations, and that You know, I have a son and a daughter. My son wants nothing to do with what I'm doing in the shop unless it's like making an order for something he wants me to build for him. But my daughter wants to spend time with me. She wants to use the hammer. She wants to use the drill. She wants to actually use it and do it. And I think that's
Heck
fantastic, you know? So
Yeah.
I hope, and I know, you know, people like yourself and April and everything inspire other women, you know, and the Anna Whites and stuff inspire women to just like
Heck yeah.
figure out how to get into doing that stuff. But I hope to see the tides continue to change in that
Oh,
direction.
absolutely. They have to. Actually, you want to know something really funny about Anna White? My brother-in-law like has built like so many Anna White projects, and I freaking love that. Like, he is like the manliest man, and he's like, you know, like he has built like almost all the furniture in his entire house, but like literally every single piece is plants he bought from Anna White. And I was like, yeah,
Nice.
yeah. And I mean, like, I'm not. Oh, actually, I'm not going to finish that thought because I get in trouble. But anyway, Adam's whole family is like very, very proud of him for building that stuff. So
Right.
I'm like, yeah, Anna White, man.
Anna White. That's right. Well, Anne, we are definitely at the end of our time. And in case people don't know where they can find you, I'm going to give you the opportunity to shout out where people should look you up.
Oh, yeah, you can find me at Anne of All Trades pretty much anywhere on the internet. You can find me on Instagram at Anne of All Trades, on TikTok at Anne of All Trades, on YouTube at Anne of All Trades, Twitter at Anne of All Trades, and my website is anneofalltrades.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me. I really appreciate
Oh, man,
it.
thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, so again, that was Anne of Anne of All Trades, and I will make sure to put all of the links on all of the different social media for you to follow along with Anne in the show notes. And the easiest way you can find those show notes is to visit freemanfurnishings.com and hit podcast in the upper left-hand corner. You'll find the show notes for this episode and all of the past episodes as well, so you can find all of the other amazing makers. All right, now if you're enjoying this podcast, there are a few things that you could do to help this podcast continue going and get more of an audience. One of those things is to make sure that whatever platform you are listening to or watching this podcast on, that you hit that subscribe button. And then if you can head to iTunes, leave a 5-star review or leave a comment on YouTube in the video itself, that would be amazing. If you really, really enjoy the podcast, think about joining the tribe over on Patreon. There are several different tier levels. There's a $1, $3, and $5 tier level that come with different merchandise like stickers and t-shirts. Plus you're part of the tribe and you'll get access whenever there are live interviews or Zoom meetups. And then there is a new tier level. It is a $30 tier level, and that makes you an official sponsor of the podcast, which gets you your own ad spot during the podcast episode, every episode of the month. Now, those are very limited spots, so if this is something you think you might be interested in, you might want to go hop on that real quick. And that's just, again, at Patreon, so patreon.com/MakerMomPodcast. Or if you want to just straight up get some merchandise, you can head on over to freemanfurnishings.com/shop and find the Maker Mom Podcast tee, which currently is rocking the Mom Squad, which is the list of the first 65 episodes of interviews. All right. When I'm not making this podcast, you can find me, Katie Freeman, underneath my design and make website, freemanfurnishings.com, and at Freeman Furnishings on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, and I think it's Freeman Furnish 1 on TikTok, on Twitter. All right, so go ahead and you can follow along with me if you want to see the crazy things that I am up to making, generally power carving these days, but also some resin projects in there too. So it is Wednesday, it is hump day. Whoop, whoop. I hope you have a fabulous rest of your week, and I will see you next week with a brand new Wonder Women segment.